Good evening. Hey Jen, how you doing, sister? Shalom, shalom. So, Dreaded Farmer, I'm just jumping on here because I wanted to share something with you all. As we're about to ring in the Shabbat, that's the Sabbath, here shortly, I just had a thought from a passage that I read earlier from 1 Peter chapter 4. So it's the first 6 verses. So I'm going to actually read the verses for you and then kind of share my thoughts. But it's about arming yourself. So it says, starting at verse 1, "Since therefore Messiah suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves with the same way of thinking. For whoever has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of Elohim." And that's God. "For the time that is past suffices for doing what the Gentiles want to do, living in sensuality, passions, drunkenness, orgies, drinking parties, and lawless idolatry. With respect to this, they are surprised when you do not join them in the same flood of debauchery, and they malign you. But they will give account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. For this is why the gospel was preached even to those who are dead, that though judged in the flesh the way people are, they might live in the spirit the way God does, Elohim." So basically, this is a very interesting passage talking about kind of stewarding God's grace, right? So Messiah suffered in the flesh, and we're supposed to arm ourselves in the same way of thinking that he had, so that if we've suffered in the flesh, we've ceased from sin, because the flesh is drawn towards sin, right? So the flesh is drawn towards all the things that are not right, the things that separate us from the Most High God. So one thing that is definitely saying here is that your time of doing what the Gentiles do, your time of doing what the nations do, or doing what the pagans do, is over. So you don't have to stay in your drunkenness, stay in your sensuality, your passions, your drinking parties, your lawless idolatry. You know, we live in a world where idolatry is rampant in so many different ways. I mean, to the point where we even may idolize our own family members, or idolize our spouse, or our job, or our favorite football team, right? We might, partake in the things of the flesh and do all this partying and stuff. And here it says, you're to step away from those things. That's the old self, right? And so when you step away, when you step into that, when you arm yourself with the thinking of Messiah, then of course your friends are going to scoff. They're going to say, how come you're not coming out with us? How come you're not doing all this stuff that we normally do? You know who you are. How come you're not being true to who you are? How come you're not, doing this dirt with us, right? How come you're not like you used to be? Come on, buddy. You know you want to get out there. You know you want to do these things, right? So we're supposed to step away from that. See, the flesh is drawn to it, but the spirit rejects it, right? The spirit is literally allergic to these things. And so as believers in Messiah, we have to remember that we have to separate ourselves from that. We have to literally distinguish between what is holy and what is common. And we can't mix the two. We can't take something that's common and make it holy. We can't take something that's common and make it about Messiah, because it's not, So I encourage you to remember, it's important to remember your old self, but also to forget your old self, because you are renewed. You are redeemed by the Most High God. You are redeemed by Yeshua, the Messiah, right? So now you are a new creature. You can walk in newness. You can be completely different than you were before. You can walk in the Spirit instead of the flesh, right? You can have all the fruits of the Spirit, including self-control. Because a lot of times you might think to yourself, man, it's just hard to control that urge. I just have to do this. I just have to do that. It's just so hard. Well, if you yield to the flesh every day, it's going to be very hard. It's going to be impossible. But if you yield to the Spirit, then guess what? The Spirit will guide you. The Spirit will guide all of your steps into righteousness. And when the Spirit does that, now you have power, because it's been promised that when the Spirit comes, you will receive power. And we have to walk in that power. So are we walking in that power when we get tempted by the world? So you should walk in that power every day. and it takes a daily submission. So you've never arrived until you're actually in front of the Most High in glory, right? So this side of eternity, we haven't arrived yet. We have been redeemed, and we are being made new, right? So you have to not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So your mind has to change its thought process from, ooh, I used to like that, or that's something that's valuable to me, to now the things of God are valuable to me, right? So you have to literally be about your Father's business, like Yeshua was. So because we are being transformed into his image, we are trying to become like him. That's the work that the Father is doing in us, right? So he's taken us away from that debauchery, that idolatry, and of course, again, the spirit is at war with the flesh, and the spirit is at war with the world. So all your friends they're gonna mock you when you stop doing all the stuff you used to do, all the stuff that was part of your old life. Your new life should look completely different from your old life. If it looks the same, you gotta look in the mirror and ask God, hey, I want more of you and less of me. I need you to increase and me to decrease, because you don't want your life to look today the way it looked before you found Messiah, right? Because that's not true transformation. That's not true change. And you can't be successful that way. You have to submit to him every day and let him transform you. And I think it's beautiful because, we are supposed to, be dead through the flesh so that we may live in the spirit the way Elohim does. And we are being transformed into his image. We've already been created in his image, so we already have these things in us, but we've allowed sin to take over, and we've allowed the flesh to take over. So now that you have the spirit in you, allow the spirit to take control of your body. Allow the spirit to guide your steps. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, right? Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And that's the truth. Acknowledge him in everything. He will equip you. He will arm you with that right thinking so that you can actually step forward in faith and in confidence and in strength and in power and in bravery to step away from the things of the world. So I just want to encourage you to remember that you are being renewed, you are redeemed, you are restored in a new light, okay? And you are now a child of the Most High, so life is going to be drastically, radically different today than it was yesterday. So submit to the Most High God today and start walking in the Spirit. And step away from the old life, the old things. Whatever was part of the old life that drew you to other things. A lot of times people talk about triggers, right? We have these things that when we are in the right place at the right time, this trigger could cause something negative in our lives, right? So don't even set yourself up in that situation. So if you used to be someone that you drink a lot of beer or drink a lot of wine or whatever, you used to go out and party with your friends, a lot of the times most times that leads to something negative. So God doesn't want that for you. You don't have to get drunk anymore. You don't have to drink at all if you don't want to. If you really want to have self-control, you don't necessarily need to drink. Is drinking wine bad? Absolutely not. Too much of anything is bad, right? So don't be drawn back into your old way, right? Don't go to the places you used to go. Don't hang out with the people you used to hang out with. Light can't have fellowship with darkness, right? So I just want you to be encouraged to look towards the new direction. So don't, take that rear view mirror down. Don't look back and go, man, those were the days, or I remember those times, man, that was fun. No, put that rear view mirror down and look forward. Be a forward thinker and take on what God has for you. And then one thing that I want to say is that, everybody has a calling. Everybody has something they're drawn to, something that God has put on their heart, something that they need to do, something that they have been equipped to do, something they've been created to do. But what good is having that call and that thing that you're created for if you're not well enough to do it? So I encourage you to start eating better, exercise, take care of yourself, use your essential oils, pray, and meditate on the things of God instead of the things of the world, so that you can be fully equipped and armed with the right thinking and a healthy body to do exactly what you've been called to do and what God has called you to do. And you know I love all of y'all, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. I'm going to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom as we enter into God's rest, His official Shabbat. So Shabbat Shalom. I want you to live it, love it, share it. Shalom, shalom, shalom.